You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. We are coming at you live from an undisclosed location in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So if this were actually live, nobody could come kill us in our sleep. But it's nice out. There are actually birds up here. Most of the spring migration is gone from Lansing. So this was worth it. How are you, David?
I'm good, very relaxed. I've been here a couple of days already, so it's been good.
Sweet. We've been kind of talking about what we would talk about today. We're still doing a ton of birding. Obviously, it's still the migration. You're probably going to hear some wind. I can't do a whole lot about that. I'll try to deal with it in post. But a lot has happened. We have some drinks here, and we're going to chill before we eat dinner at this campfire. I just got here a couple hours ago. We kind of got the lay of the land. Saw a couple warblers, saw a kingfisher. I have some new gear to talk about. We have some gear stuff. I have some hypotheticals or some topics to talk about. But what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? A couple of birds here and there the last couple of days or weeks or months, really. Spring migration has been just crazy. And I've never paid attention to it like I have this year. I was talking to you earlier about just the sheer amount of effort I've put in. And if I can match that energy next year, I'll be pretty lucky. Because what I'm logging right now, what did I say, 96? And I probably have at least four more lifers to enter I'm like a week behind in my Lightroom right now. Because I have everything cold out except for what I've shot this weekend.
Good for you. I'm behind since Maryland and was that April? April.
So yeah, I can't imagine what your hard drives look like right now, but I'm cold down to when I say that I still have 500 images to consider editing and then cold down again because I don't want to keep anything that could be too similar. I keep looking up because I'm looking for you're going to see me on camera just be the whole time.
We're going to walk away from this episode mid episode because the birds will start coming out here very soon.
They will.
And,
yes. So yeah, it's just been a lot of that, man. The trails in Ishpeming where I took you guys has been just absolutely fruitful for me. Continues to be. The warblers I've been seeing there. Between the last episode and this one, I had one particular fantastic day where I saw Cape May for the first time.
Cool.
Black-throated green, a couple of yellow-rumped, just tons. I think that as soon as I pulled up, I didn't even get on the trail. I sent you a video or something of them just dotted around the trees right by the fence line.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever had a day like that. And that was probably the biggest push they'd had so far in the migration. So that's just what it's been. That I haven't done any landscape photography aside from just what I did this morning, basically.
Yeah.
Because it's been just this lens and this camera glued to me.
Yeah.
Other than the ZF for work. And I guess I lied. I did a little bit of stuff that wasn't birding, but we can talk about that in a minute. What have you been up to?
Same, just birding a ton. We went to Maryland, like I'm sure I mentioned in some episodes, late April, all of May. We've been up to the Tawas area, Oscoda area of Michigan a couple of times now. We saw some awesome stuff, and I'm probably going to have David share some of what he was talking about, and I'll put it up on the screen because we have so many photos to share, but our most recent trip to Oscoda, we took my future sister-in-law and her husband to Tuttle Marsh in outside of Oscoda. And what was really crazy, just a short sidebar, there was a guy there that was really good friends with my housing director at NCMC. And he asked us if we had seen anything, and we had a little interaction, and I could not place it. And I found him on my Steam, and I messaged him the next day.
Holy.
And then we jumped in a Discord call because it was him, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years.
That's funny.
So, birding brings people together randomly.
I guess it does.
But yeah, so we got out of the car with sister-in-law and husband, and as we did, an eagle flies over the road with an American bittern in its talons.
Oh, I saw that picture.
So freaking epic.
Oh.
Elle was devastated. At Tuttle Marsh, we've heard so much, so many American bitterns, and they make this like very strange like glug. Like think if you put like a bunch of
Yeah.
water in like a PVC and you move it up and down, you
Yeah.
hear like the whoop.
Yep.
Super weird. But we never saw them. And so her first time seeing one in person was in the talons of an eagle, which I thought was
It is
awesome.
badass.
And she was disappointed, but
Yeah.
admitted that it was cool. Then I got an incredible eagle in flight that was following it. Um, Tons of warblers. I got my first Kirtland the weekend before.
Missing that one still.
So we went out to that area of, northern Michigan where there's all those jack pine like forests. And they're interesting because they nest on the ground, I guess. And, I'm used to warbler neck.
Yeah.
And I realized that my 6'9" self had to
Yeah.
look down.
Uh-huh.
So I actually got my photos of the Kirtland doing this under like some branches because I'm so freaking tall and so awkward. And I got one with, some nesting material in its mouth. It's a beautiful photo. I couldn't be
Yeah.
happier with that. Um, yeah, just so many. I think I probably have I have like I think I said something like 168 lifers in my Berta.
Mhm.
I have 116 for the year, and that's not counting at least two major trips
Yeah, that's
and another time in Oscoda and all of spring migration.
you're gonna have you're gonna have a massive bump pretty soon.
Yeah, but what was cool, so I just finally got to some of my final days in Mexico, and I got a summer tanager, a red, something like a red-throated ant tanager or something like that. I can't
Whoa.
remember the exact name, something ant tanager. And then I also got this really wild olivated wood creeper that kind of looks like a little tanager.
Whoa.
I got so many birds that I had no idea I got because I didn't
Yeah.
ID them when I was in Mexico.
Yeah.
And I think that one final day was like 22 species, outside of seeing all of the other birds like motmots and brown jays and Yucatan jays and all that
Right.
other stuff. So, crazy year. I think 116 species by the end of May is pretty good.
Yeah.
I definitely have some warblers that I haven't counted for yet, so I think I'm probably pretty close to 150.
Wow.
I think I don't think I've even put I might not have put glossy or white ibises in there yet. I haven't. Yeah, I've done so much stuff.
I saw a white egret on the drive back from picking Don up from St. Ignace, just sitting there in one of the 10 miles west from here,
Sure.
just sitting on the lakeside. I wanted to stop. I should have, but I didn't. I didn't have my camera because I was just picking him up.
Our biggest, I think, achievement recently was I think since late last year we've been trying to find a black crowned night heron.
Mm-hmm.
And we showed up
Yes.
to Nyan King, which is like around Bay City. It's a little like it's a very small location. It's just like kind of a little road loop, but we got like multiple in-flight black crowned night herons, and they're epic. I
That's
got some really great photos of them. Um, Super cool birds. Green herons, great blues,
I love green
egrets.
herons, dude.
I got a couple on the lake while I was in Port Huron, or on the river. So I got some really close-up shots of that. I'll try and do my best and put some of these photos that I'm talking about up. But the birding year this year was crazy.
Wild.
I guess I'll segue into the birding year was crazy, but it also had a huge, like the most gas I've had as a photographer, I think.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have birding gear. I really didn't have birding gear. The A7 IV is probably like you can get amazing images with any of these cameras, but if you have a lot of cameras and you have access to a lot of cameras, you get to kind of dial in exactly what you're looking for, and it gets a little bit more esoteric. If I had nothing and somebody gave me the 200 to 600 A7 IV, amazing shots all day. You're never gonna like really want for anything unless you have been in the game for a little while and you know what you kind of want for other stuff. I think the greater context of my shooting informs my gas in a way that's really unproductive. I'd say like because camera conspiracies little jingle is in my head all the time. All I want is the perfect camera,
Yes.
and it doesn't exist. Okay, they're all so good And for them to be good in one thing, they have to give up some other stuff.
Hmm.
I actually had this conversation with Elle because she doesn't have the context about like sensor technology and stuff. But she's becoming pretty proficient with an A6700, and she's
Sure.
like, I don't know, like why would I want this or that or the
Right.
other thing?
She's asking the questions though. That's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's way smarter than me, so
Yeah.
uh, love you. But it got me thinking really hard because I almost got a Z8. I almost got a Z6 III with the 180 to 600. I was freaking spiraling. I had a A9 III in my cart 4 different times, and I was at checkout. All I had to do was press order now.
Yeah.
Um,
There's Merlin.
we'll get them. And so what happened was I realized that I needed to either prioritize the megapixels I liked and the way that I shot,
Yeah.
the speed that I wanted, or the price.
Mm-hmm.
And I could get the A9 III. I would love it. It would do kind of 90% of what the A7S III could do, other than the super low light crazy stuff, because the global shutter's amazing. The video would be stellar. But I haven't really been wanting that much from video because the A7 IV at work does fine.
Yep.
I don't care about crop. I'm not doing cinematic stuff. I'm not
Right.
trying to be a filmmaker. Like, I do content for the internet. All of these cameras crush. I
Mm-hmm.
could use a ZVE1, which is like is $1,700 right now or something like that, and it's an A7S III sensor. I almost bought one just
Mm-hmm.
to prove the point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, if you come closer to me, we're quitting. He's right there. It's a Merlin.
Yeah.
Um, and then I realized I was about to sell the A7 CR,
Mm-hmm.
which I had been birding with this whole season. And it's not a birding camera.
No.
It doesn't have a full mechanical shutter. Um, it only goes to 1/4000th of a second.
Yeah.
I have to have the extended grip on it to have the big lens on it comfortably because my hands are large. It's only 8 FPS, but the autofocus is great, and the crop and the crop mode is 26 megapixels. So I, after considering spending $6,500 on an A12, and which would be amazing because like that's probably such a boring camera because it's actually amazing. 30
Yeah.
FPS raw, pre-capture in raw, 50 megapixels, AI auto, the whole shebang, right? But it's $6,500. And then I realized I love the screen, I love the sensor, I love all of the
Mm.
features. I wanted the dual card slots, and I wanted the A series, or the A7 series EVF, and I wanted the A7S III EVF. So I got the A7R5,
Yeah, you did.
even though I own the A7CR, and I don't regret it for birding and wildlife in a way that I'm not trying to become like a wildlife photographer, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not selling calendars. And even if I do,
Right.
this is going to make every image I ever need. Um, I actually, a video auto played where a guy was a landscape photographer, which is so far away from what I do. I need fast autofocus. I do shooting sports and birds and all that. But he was like, I'll never need another camera in my lifetime.
Right.
I'll want forever.
Yeah.
But the A7R4, which is like pretty long in the tooth now, for landscapes, where you're like between just like a normal autofocus or like a focus
Mm-hmm.
bracket or like whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a 61 megapixel bomb dynamic range, and I
Mm-hmm.
love the sensor. So we're shooting, this is an A7CR, that's why I keep pointing that way.
Yep.
And I have the A7R5. I've not been happier since owning cameras. I still want everything for whatever reason to play with and toy with.
Yeah.
I can shoot anything I need.
That's yes. Yes.
So that was a very long-winded and slightly distracted way of saying I finally pulled the trigger. I spent so much less money than getting even an A9 III, which I would love. But again, it's a like $5,000 with a huge discount camera.
Yep.
And again, it's 24 megapixels. I think the size, those files for me have been everything.
Yeah.
And it's where my creativity goes. I now have the A7CR full time, and putting it up again, my gas for your ZF is so high. And then I put it next to my A7CR that I can basically fit in my pocket. It's smaller than a freaking X106.
Yeah.
The lens protrudes a little more, but the
Yeah.
body and everything is tiny. And it's a 61 megapixel. Like, I don't even need a Leica Q with that thing,
Yeah.
with the 40 f2.5 that I'm shooting on. So I finally have a little bit of breathing room, a little bit because of a couple videos I watched, a little bit because I have this in hand and I love it and I have zero buyer's remorse,
Mm-hmm.
and then a little bit because L is still shooting a A6700 with a Sigma 1 to 400
Yep.
and loving it.
Yeah.
And
Good.
she's like, I love my setup. I get everything that I want. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Does she want more reach? Yes. But she even finally kind of figured out, which I'm really proud of, that like that reach, that like artificial reach, especially for small birds, doesn't actually do anything for you because you need to get closer to the bird.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially during warbler season, she learned a ton about shooting.
And you save a ton of money doing it that way.
Right. And so you gotta get closer to these birds,
Yeah.
and you just gotta like prioritize trying to get the better shot.
Yes. Yes.
Because you can still crop her 26 megapixel on like a duck way out in the lake, and you get the shot that you're gonna get with my $3,000 A7CR even.
Yep.
So I say all that to say, you're probably fine with whatever you have. Uh, I'm getting closer than ever to just shooting again and enjoying it. I'm shooting more often, not just birds.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's awesome.
In that vein, I'd like to talk about the ZF a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause you're
Um,
thriving with that guy.
so yes, in the Discord, if you're not in there, you should be, because you're going to see some images that I'm not posting because I'm really neglecting Instagram lately, except for stories. I've been using the ZF in the black and white mode a lot. And honestly, this morning and yesterday, I was going back and forth between regular photo mode and black and white mode. But the black and white mode is just so much fun. And I got a little taste of this at the very tail end of my A7 IV use,
Yeah.
when I realized like how easy it was to kind of set that up. But there is an additional there's a tactile lever on the ZF that switches it over to black and white mode, from video to photo to black and white. And I didn't, maybe at very first I was a little like, they really dedicated that spot to this, but it's fine. It really didn't take away from anything. So there is a dedicated black and white mode. You cannot go into the I menu and change into a color profile picture. Like if your lever is there, you're in black and white, which is cool. There's a couple profiles in there. If you want to do a picture profile, you can do just normal monochromatic. There's like a flatter monochromatic, and then there's the deep tone monochromatic.
And that's what you're using, right?
That's what I'm using, that deep tone monochromatic. When I edit my black and whites often, I am going very contrasty.
Yeah.
And there's something about that for me. I don't know what it is. I just love a good, deep, contrasty look for black and whites.
I think there's like a latent, there's a photographer or a set of photographers from the film era, yeah, that our background like tertiarily like existed around, that makes that the vibe for black and white. Because I love punchy, crunchy black and white.
Yeah.
And really, those are fully unedited, the ones that you've been posting.
I have not edited a single one.
And they'll be showing on the screen while we're talking about this. But they're awesome.
Can you believe I did bird photography in black and white on the ZF with the 50mm? The goose shot, that first one in that series, 2 geese with the goslings in the little creek there, that was like just so much fun. And that's the point, is I've been having fun with the ZF. This is fun to use, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love bouncing around trails with this thing, but when I'm not on the trails, or even when I am, and I just want to screw around in a completely different mode. Like, I took the ZF out this morning and did ICM in the black and white mode, and just like being totally abstract with it.
Yeah.
And I could do street photography. I can do all those things with this camera, but there is extra tactile, just, it feels good, man. It feels great. So it's like getting back into the spirit of having a camera to do something very fun with. And I love the challenge of getting the birds. That is like, it tickles a part of my brain that's like a skill to improve on. And you get, like, when you get into bird photography, you start at the very bottom, but like if you've got the tools and the resources, you can climb that ladder so fast.
Well, and then you find out that like it's a lot of bit of luck and a little bit of being in the right spot at the right time, and then just like kind of you have to have a certain level of gear. But once you're past that, it's like you're gonna be at the best of them. I had this conversation, just a very small sidebar.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, all you do is bird now. Because like if you go on my Instagram page, my grid is birds.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, because we're at the doorway where the swinging doors are wide open
Yeah.
to the whole AI generated everything. You have to go out and find these things. And
Yep.
there's just something that's just like visceral to my
very
entire
real.
soul about why I like making at all,
Yep.
let alone, with cameras or making good images, is that when I get a photo that I'm like, that's a freaking banger.
Yep.
Like I'll put up my cuckoo photo, my yellow-billed cuckoo I got like last week or 2 weeks ago. And it hit,
It was wonderful.
and I had to do like a big lunge around a tree, and
Yep.
I'm like trying to get right out, and I cleared the brush in front of him just enough to get this beautiful frame. I didn't clone out a single thing on this image, and it pops.
Yes.
And you could generate it all day long.
Yep.
It's a very simple bird image.
Yep.
But I had to be there.
Right.
I had to get that. I witnessed it. We followed that cuckoo around for 10, 15 minutes, and it's satisfying as hell.
So I want to ask you this, but I will just end the ZF conversation going, the ZF is doing for me a creative aspect of photography that I've always done. The Z8 and this bird stuff is a new area of photography that is like, it put me back at the bottom of the totem pole. And I've been doing photography since 2011.
Right.
To feel that way feels so good, to be just constantly learning and getting better.
Yep.
And you recognize it like week after week, like, oh man, I saw this bird this week. And then the next week you're like, oh, I got a better shot of it. And now you're hitting the list, and it just feels good to check these boxes. That being said, is there a more creative way? Does bird photography do anything creatively for you? Are you approaching it with creativity in any way?
Yeah. I think it's informed my product photography editing.
Oh, really?
I think it's informed a lot of me wanting to pick up my camera in general. I'm starting more video. I've been trying to make sure I try to get really good videos of a lot of the cool birds I see now, and that's been really huge because I've really put my video work aside, and that's how I got into photography, was through video. So I'm starting to re-engage with that part of my creativity.
I guess maybe I should reframe the question. Are you going into doing bird photography with like any creative mindset? Because for me, it almost doesn't even feel like I'm doing something creative. It feels like I'm doing something just so objective. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I think it's a little twofold for me because we being me and Elle, are often trying to get those numbers up. And we're trying to find these rare birds, and we're in the Discords, and we really take the birding. Like, we got a snowy owl last week,
That's
which
so
was
crazy.
absolutely insane. I can't even believe that wasn't the first thing I brought up.
Like, have you talked to other birders about that?
Yeah.
It's just the fact that there's a snowy owl in the middle of May.
Yeah,
where
like
you were.
up by Saginaw, Michigan. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's crazy.
But that's a huge aspect of it, which is just like finding the birds. But then I had to take a step back and realize that, like, while we're doing a journey together, Elle's journey and my journey are very different.
Yeah.
And there was something completely missing until I realized I don't have to snap every single bird that she does.
Yeah.
And she has gotten a lot of birds I didn't, and I am bummed out about a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
But then I have to step back and go, you know what? But I was there with her, and I'm glad she got those birds, because that's where her journey is right now, and my journey is trying to get the best freaking photo of some of these birds as I can.
Yeah.
So like, she got some kind of booby in Mexico. Basically, we saw some brown pelicans.
Yeah.
I snapped those. She got some kind of booby. I can't remember what bird it is. It looks very much like a pelican, has a blue beak or something like that.
Oh.
Very different than the pelican. And then there was another set of pelicans. I have both the sets of pelicans. I do not have the other bird. But she's like, you got to shoot every bird that you see.
Yeah.
And I'm very like, I wasn't going to get a good shot of it anyway.
Oh.
So I'm trying to...
I live in between that. I find myself often going, if it looks like junk, maybe I'm not going to take the shot. But if there's a little hint in my brain that goes, maybe that's a bird I don't have yet, I'll take the shot.
It ebbs and flows for sure.
Yeah.
But there's days where I go, I'm going to miss the shot if she's really excited about a bird and is trying to get my attention, but I want the best
Ah.
freaking shot I can of this warbler.
So I like that. I really
And
for like being creatively driven in a very objective type of photography.
yeah,
I think that helps drive you and a lot of people forward. Like I want to be that a little bit more. I think this year for me is like I'm really opening my eyes to how many birds I have access to, and I feel like next year will be the more creative side of me
yeah,
birding. So I want to be there.
yeah, we're insanely lucky. For some context, Ella's in Florida right now, and she's having a miserable time because apparently nobody uses eBird, and it's really rough, and it's not as accessible. Even in Lansing, which is not as beautiful as where you live in the UP,
Yeah.
which is amazing. Like there's so much stuff up here that's like epic. But even in Lansing, we have like 10 nature preserve type wildlife, bird, sanctuary type places.
Yeah.
And we've had every sick, rare bird you basically can. I did consider going to find the scissor-tailed flycatcher instead of coming here
Did
because
you?
it's like on the other side of the UP from
Yes,
here.
it is.
And me and Elle were talking about it. I was like, I could just abandon
Just
David
bail.
completely.
Honestly, I would have been okay too.
If I got it, you would have been okay. If I didn't, I think we both would have
I
been a little bummed.
respect the hustle
Yeah,
though.
and that's the strong influence from Elle's side of the
Yeah.
birding, which is like there's a rare bird and I want to get it. I would not have gotten the snowy if she wasn't persistent and was like, we have to go.
Yeah.
And we were going up Toscoda anyway, and we nailed it. So it took me a while, but it ticks a ton of boxes.
Yes.
And the fact that I can do it with my partner is obviously super epic.
That is yes, honestly, that has got to be a motivator too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's made me a better birder in general. It's
Sure.
made me a better photographer for sure.
It sounds like it's like gets very well informed on like everything that could be around
Yeah,
at one time.
her brain works faster than mine, and she can multitask quite a lot more than mine. She also kind of hones in on times that don't, so there's some dissonance, but she does all of that while being a doctor, so that's incredibly impressive.
Yes.
She just made an Instagram that I'll put up on the screen. You should go follow it because I think it took a lot for her to go, I'm going to make a bird Instagram. That's not really her thing.
It's that
but-
next step. She's getting going into it.
She's been shooting for less than a year.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the images she's already posted, some of them are freaking amazing.
Yep.
Like some of them I'm like, oh damn, baby, that's like super good. That's like a fucking awesome shot. And so that's super cool. And it's a lot of just like we got her a little bit of kit and we've been
Yeah.
facilitating a lot of birding. So we've learned a lot in a little bit of time. But I think where it's going, it's not going away. I want to get like the next level of shots. I'm trying to bring the tripod out more, which I never do.
Really?
I just don't, we don't have time. We hike so much.
Yeah.
And she like, she'll gun for something. Like we're looking
Yeah.
for a water thrush still, and she won't stop until we find it.
I guess an extension on my question is, do you think creativity drives her in the photography aspect at all?
I think it does, and I think it manifests itself a little differently
Yeah.
than what I call my creativity.
Yeah.
She's not historically the type of creative that I am, which was illustrator
Right.
turned videographer turned photographer.
Sure.
But I think it takes an awful lot of like really 4D thinking to do the medical field as long as you do.
Well, and
And I
then
think-
she's also on the other side of this thing where a birder gets the camera, right? Like it's so that's
And
why I
so,
ask.
right. So she had this like really sharp persistence for finding the birds.
Yeah.
And then now she has this camera that, again, like imagine if the A6700 was your first camera, dude.
I know. Yeah.
If the A6700 was my first camera, like
Yeah.
everything else would actually be super boring because it's incredible.
Yes.
Like it's a super powerful.
Yes.
I think I got it for less than $1,200, and it's one of the most spectacular cameras on the market,
Yep.
especially for birding. But yeah, so I do. I've been trying to talk more about it. We're kind of still working out our full feelings about it. Sometimes it just goes back to the very visceral, I need to see these birds.
Yeah.
But then
Is she into like bird like or photography YouTube at all? Does she watch stuff?
no, not quite yet.
Yeah.
But I have her on one, and so we've been playing with on one,
Yeah.
and she's like kind of meeting some of the limits. She's
Oh,
actually
wow.
she's actually kind of seeing how like there's going to be probably a chance that I'm going to have to put Lightroom on her computer.
Oh.
Because she was able to use my Lightroom on her iPad because I have it on there. And then she used my Lightroom before I gave her on one, but now she's starting to mask. And I need to do a
That's where
whole
it slowed
I,
down.
I need to do a whole video on masking because David and I have talked on this podcast and privately a lot about like what bird photography looks like
Yeah.
and like how much are you willing to edit and what some of these really popular bird one of them that I'm not throwing shade at all, but I think one of the most stylized photographers on Instagram is this guy Mankey Photo. I think that's right. I'll put it up on the screen. Um, Almost not realistic edits at all,
Right.
but they're amazing.
Right.
Totally stylized in his way.
And it
If
takes a level of skill to do the type of masking that he
Yeah,
obviously is
yeah,
doing.
it's insane, but it's so far away from what my goal is with my
Right.
photography. I'm trying to still try to stay somewhat naturalistic, except I probably average more than 5 masks on a photo.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm about at the same. I think you and I have a relatively similar editing style for birds.
yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's like old school Ansel Adams style,
Yeah.
like dodge and burn
Yes.
with a
Just
little
draw
bit of
focus with light.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then with a little playing of colors,
Yeah.
and then one thing that I'm not rocking a 600 f4, so
Right.
with some of these smaller birds, you're getting these really messy things.
Yes.
So what I found that I do a lot is I'll mask the subject, which is insanely easy in Lightroom now.
So fast.
And then, maybe you got to touch it up a little bit, but almost barely ever if it's a good enough photo. And I punch up a little texture, a little clarity, and then I just duplicate and invert the mask and I pull it down on the other side. And that little touch is enough.
It adds so much. That's exactly what I do, by the way.
If you
We
do,
had made this known to each other recently. We do
yeah.
exactly the same thing.
And if you do nothing else besides add a little texture and clarity to the bird and a little less on the rest of the frame,
And it's like 10 or 15. Like
yeah,
you
no,
don't go wild.
it's a couple bumps. It's huge.
Yeah.
You could only do that.
It's massive.
And then if you add a little bit of light stuff on there, it's crazy. And maybe I'll try to show you like a step by step there,
Sure.
on the screen. But it's pretty wild, and but that's informed how I draw the eye on what became really mundane photography at work, which was like I'm still shooting photos of these pistols and
Yeah.
optics and like just like really boring product photos just to keep information flowing
Yes.
through my super shadow banned Instagram. And and it kind of revitalized a little bit of fun for that, which has
Yeah.
been great. So
Yes. It is yes. It's part of the photography in birding that is also an extension of that creativity, which it feels good because then you kind of continue shaping the art and you make it what you want. And like, adding the linear gradient for a little bit of exposure value down just to like, you don't want people looking at, like the bottom of the frame or whatever, and then adding like a nice soft warm glow on the top to direct that light. And I often do that where like the bird is looking in open space. It's all like that is a continuation of where I'm at creatively. When I asked you before, it's like I want to be more creative in the field, but in editing, that's what I've been doing. And
yeah,
it's great. It honestly doesn't take very long because the masking is so fast in Lightroom.
yeah.
And that's probably what you were talking about with L hitting some limitations is I noticed in on one, that's where things begin to slow down.
Yeah, I mean, even to put a vignette on your photo on one is like a whole
Convoluted.
filter.
Yeah, that was
yeah,
weird.
It's strange, and it was really good, and I don't regret buying it. And I think if you're on a budget, there's nothing better than on one still.
It is very competent I bought it for $50 on sale, and I was
Same.
like, you can't beat that.
It was 52, and you don't have to pay for it again, and you can
Yep.
have it on 2 systems. So
Yep.
I have it on my computer and hers.
Yeah.
I'd
go back to it if I had to.
Yeah,
For sure.
For sure. So going back to being creative in the field, I think what all that has afforded me, being as deep into birding now as I am, it's been exactly a full year. And having shot a lot of the birds that I have access to in Michigan, I've found myself having the ability to pause and go, I really want this photo of this bird, but this background's messy, but the foreground's messy, but there's sticks.
There you go.
And I can move left and right.
There you
And
go.
I know that like if I lunge all the way over, I'm gonna get this cuckoo shot. Like I know that if I just like wait a little bit longer, and if I wait, and then if I wait, and then if I wait, I'm gonna get this Kirkland warbler shot.
There you
And
go.
that's been fun. And I think like it's starting to bleed into Elle's experience too. So she's starting to realize that like I snapped that photo, but I know if I wait just a little longer, I'm about to get a better one. And I can see that.
Yes. There
It
you go.
reinforces it, which is helpful for
Yep.
me. Because her photography has gone from like literally just like as long as the bird's in the frame and I can ID it, it's good, to like I am kind of jealous of some of her photos, and that's epic.
And I can envision if you see her going through that and then she shows you the photos and she feels good about the one she worked harder on, I know you're giving her all the positive reinforcement to back that up, to motivate her to continue trying to think like that.
Well, and she's really good about asking how can I edit this better? What would
Sure.
you do to this?
Yep.
And if she looks at a frame and she's like, I don't even know what the best crop for this is. Can you just do it and then like show me what you're doing?
Mm.
Because she's super analytical. You have to be in
Yeah.
the field. So like it's fun to teach somebody like that who knows how to learn.
Yeah.
Some people don't really know how to learn.
Yeah.
They get in their way a lot, and she doesn't get in her way at all.
Or even if they're just like half interested, but doing it because you like to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like she's doing it because
No.
she really likes to do it.
I could be completely out of the picture, and at this point, she's a Hot Wheels car that's way beyond.
That is just
my
great.
reach.
I love it.
It's cool. In the same vein, I did have a question that I think is pretty interesting. So
That I forgot to think about it all. So let's go.
you did because we were walking around. I've been watching a YouTuber named Jan Wagener. I think he's probably a German Australian. I can't really peg it because he definitely has an Australian accent, but I'm pretty sure he's German. Both the name and his accent is interesting. But he probably has some of the most comprehensive gear-related birding content on YouTube, which is really interesting because he uses the three main systems, Nikon, Sony, and Canon. And I do want to sidebar, the Z8 is one of the most comfortable bodies that my hand has ever grabbed. I am very upset that that is the way it is because I'm kind of an apologist for Sony being the way it is. And you hear sometimes that people hate the grip.
This is set up for bigger hands, for sure.
If you feel the Z8 and you have large hands, you will be sad about your Sony. So Nikon crushes in that regard. But anyway, I digress. He's been talking a lot about kind of what he takes, like what's the best for all these situations. He's ran the Canon 100 to 300 2.8.
Yeah.
He runs all the highest end primes, and he'll do like early bird news, which he kind of talks about some of the rumors that we do and stuff like that. But while listening to him, I was like, what would I actually want? Because he says Sony doesn't make a great lens for birding. He said, and like I think the 200 to 600 is better than the equivalent option for Canon and Nikon. I haven't used the Nikon 180 to 600, but it's technically a Tamron, so my bias is that it's not going to be as good.
Yeah,
But
I think a lot of people have that.
But it could be. It could be better. I mean, you get a little bit of wider reach.
A lot of people own it.
Right.
There's not many other options.
Right, and until you get into the PFs and stuff like that, or even the SPFs, which are like the 600 f4 and stuff.
Well, I mean, if you want that versatility in the zoom, there just isn't many options.
Right, because you also don't have the Sigma over on the Nikon side.
Right.
So he talked through basically all the major lenses, and I was like, what do I actually want? So I love the 200 to 600. This is a 5.6 to 6.3. I love the idea of the 300 to 600 f4, but that's like ridiculous.
Unfortunate for the size and weight.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. This gets heavy. I grab L's, little A6700 and the 100 to 400, and it's light as hell. Even this is amazing. The 500 and the stabilization, this thing is awesome.
And this even has an adapter on it that's this thick. So, I mean, and this is the hood, so this is it.
Yeah,
that's the lens.
I played with it for like 2 minutes, and I was in love, because this is like probably at minimum double the weight of that.
But you have to stick a bunch more in that lens to make it work, to get it to zoom, and there's a lot in there.
But pros and cons, right? So that's what he's talking about.
Right.
And I was like, what do I actually want? And what I came to was a little bit of zoom. like a really little bit of zoom because I like the idea of a sharper prime. And I think Sigma can get there. So Sigma makes the 28 to 45 f1.8,
Yeah.
and they made the 24 to 35 f2, and they made the 18 to 35 f1.8, and they make all
Yeah.
these like pseudo barely zoom prime
Yep.
lenses. And I was thinking a 400 to 600 or a 500 to 600
Yeah.
or like a 450 to 600
4 to 6 does
F
sound good.
F56
Yeah.
where it's like still chunky. It's probably at least as big as this,
Yeah.
but you have a really short throw. You have a constant aperture. I think that's like the king.
I mean, Sony almost did that with the 4 to 8, right?
Well,
Like
400,
8
800,
goes hard,
that's a
but
huge
it
range, and it's
is.
it's 6.3 to F9 or F8. It's
I
F8.
don't know. Maybe it is.
It's F8.
Yeah.
So it's a huge variable
Yeah. I mean,
aperture.
honestly,
So like
400 to 600 to 5.6 would be sick.
yeah, and that might
Yes.
even be too big. Maybe that's too big. But
Maybe.
maybe 500, even 500 to 600. What I'm saying is like what it takes sometimes, especially with smaller birds, is to be zoomed out a little bit and then to punch in.
Yeah.
It works really well with my A7R5.
Right.
And I mean, even you're using crop mode a lot,
I'm bouncing back and forth constantly.
especially with a prime.
Yeah.
But you punch in and you get that shot, especially with the smaller birds. Obviously,
Mhm.
you really don't need it with bigger ones.
Yes.
And
And that's the thing. Yes, I'm going to full frame to really find the bird, crop mode to really hone it in. That is how it goes.
yeah, and it's because I know with smaller birds, I do not care. Like eagles, maybe some bigger, maybe some birds on the shore or some stuff. You don't really know how you want to frame it. You don't know how, so like full frame's fine.
Yep.
But with those small warblers, things through the light, like through the light in the trees,
Yeah.
up in all the brush,
Yep.
you want to be cropped in, especially if it's a busy scene. The tighter you are, the better, because like there's really no
That's the way to
there-
simplify it.
there's nothing but distraction with all of the tiny leaves. So I would love to see anybody make a super short throw zoom that's a single aperture and see what that looks like.
Tokina comes back hard.
Tokina comes out with a 500 to 600 to 5.6 for all of the mounts, and it's like, yeah, here we go.
I don't know.
I watched the Light Over Time
referenced
podcast.
you referenced some Sigma lenses that they take that kind of headspace for
the
lens
ethos.
design and just put it over to the large zoom. I don't see why they wouldn't do it. Maybe maybe one day we'll see that, but I don't know. That it might be a hard sell for some people.
I don't know
It
that
takes
it'll,
getting in there
yeah,
to like know that workflow
Yeah.
to know why you'd appreciate
yeah,
it.
and I don't know. It's niche, and I don't know that it'll ever exist. But for me, that would be the like coming from video. Constant aperture is super important. So like I think I'm just destined to prioritize a lens that's constant aperture because like it's necessary.
Yeah.
You don't want your exposure to change while you're zooming in and out on video, and that's basically so like this to me, this is an f6.3 lens. This is not a 5.6 to 6.3. This is never at
Would you
5.6.
would you consider it if Sigma came out with one, but it was like f7.2, 4 to 6 f7.2?
But if I think if you get 7.1
7.1.
probably, but if it's like a wider aperture like that, it's probably going to be a larger zoom. I would feel like. Like if you're gonna hit me with like a freaking 600 to 800,
Right. Maybe then, yeah,
then like I'll deal with like something really like.
f8.
I mean, Canon has the 600 and the 800 f11s,
Yes.
which if you watch any of Camera Conspiracies, I am back and forth if I think he's reasonable as a human being or not. Casey is super funny sometimes,
I love his
and
channel.
sometimes I just like I cringe to the max.
Yes. That's
You can't fault him because he knows exactly what he's doing.
it's intentional.
Yeah, it's very much super self aware,
Yeah.
but he's currently doing the like what's the best birding situation, the lightest, best money.
It's funny
ever.
that he's going through that right now.
Yeah, and it's been very helpful, but the 800 and the 600 f11s
Yeah.
on those bigger sensors, or even that R7, which I think he played around with. He's right in that the wider apertures don't really matter.
Yeah.
The only counter to that I have is that the freaking like reels where the guys compare the zoom lens with like the 600 f4s, and you get this like dusty ass photo, and then you get this like punchy, the craziest image you've ever seen, and like there's a little bit of sensationalism
Yes.
baked into like I'm going to make the $15,000 lens dope,
Yes.
but also the $15,000 lens is dope.
Yeah.
But also you spend $15,000 to get there. I
Right.
spent less than five on my car, and my car is
Right.
very cool.
Right.
I don't think I can
Yes.
justify
It just
15 grand.
means making smart decisions, right? Like, take a look at everything that's out there. I'm not buying an F11. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Canon. I'm just not. I want more. It's not even about separation at that point. I just need more light
sure,
sometimes.
sure.
So, that's one of the reasons why I was excited about this lens in particular is I'll give up the versatility, even though I praised it so much on the Sigma, because I got 5.6, I've got 500, and it's light as heck. I can take it in a lot of places, swing it around. I don't need to have it on a monopod in a lot of situations. I don't even own a monopod. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm not buying an F11 though, I'll tell you that. But maybe I would consider a 4 to 6 F7 one. I would look at it for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm very impressed with the weight,
Yeah.
performance, and size of your setup.
Yeah.
Uh, Super different coming from an A7
Yeah.
IV and a 150 to 600, and it's dope. I can't even imagine.
I'd love for you to use it. I
I
want to know like
I'm
what
gonna
your
I'm
what
gonna
your
play.
brain thinks about the autofocus
I
difference.
can tell you right now, there's something going on with that thing that's super dope.
Yeah.
I was looking at trees
Yeah.
earlier, and I was using the manual focus override and zooming around with it. It's pretty dope.
Well, we'll have a ton of time tomorrow. So like when we get on this hike, I'd love for you to just
Yeah, we'll swap.
carry it around for
Yeah,
a
because
while.
I want you to play around with the
Yeah.
A705 too. So,
I want to see. I
um,
want to see because you not having. I mean, have you ever owned a Nikon?
I've used plenty. Well, actually, the very first camera that I ever used that got me into video was a 3200, a D3200,
Yeah.
with a really bad.
Monster of a camera.
Yeah. But I've used the D60.
Okay.
I've
Okay. Okay.
used the D7200.
Yeah.
And one of my good buddies when I was getting into photography was a big fan. He had the D750 and some pretty good glass on it.
Okay.
And so I'm comfortable enough talking about a little bit of it.
Sure.
I wasn't on the like D100, D810,
Yeah.
D850 ride, which was really where they were like, we're actually the
Right.
kings of photography for a minute.
Yeah, and that's where I used to live with
Right.
the D850, the D500. Mostly, they had that high resolution and the other one being a speed demon, but neither of them were incredible at autofocus, although the D500 was a little ahead of its time for DSLR.
Yeah.
So that was more or less just me being curious because, I mean, I just want you to see how it is and compare it with what you know and are comfortable with Sony.
And I want to talk about something culturally.
Sure.
Uh, the look of a Nikon is a goddamn photography camera.
Yeah. Yes.
Dude, I remember so vividly like Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World,
Yeah.
and like Vince Vaughn with his like Nikon, or maybe it was I can't even remember her name at the moment. Um, but yeah, it's the vibe.
Yes.
I'm looking at that lens and it's insane that that's a 500. I'm so upset about it. That's considerable.
It's nice.
But it feels good.
Yes.
The files are good. I I would literally have a Z8 right now if the pre-capture was raw.
That is a bane. But at the same time, when I tested that, it felt so like weighed down by just how much file management I needed to do for a 30-minute session. But that was testing
So I was testing. So you're playing with it like
a lot.
so when I know I see a bird, like I got an indigo bunting the other day, which is one of my favorite birds. I think I can pretty much attribute my like really getting into birding to two birds. The scarlet tanager I got in Tawas last year because it was one of my first rare,
Yep.
and then like I have an insane photo of it. Every single time since then, the scarlet tanagers in like the highest freaking tree you
At
can
least
find
you've
them.
seen one.
I've seen many, actually. I've seen 3 this year, which is cool.
Okay.
But the very first one I ever got was like from me to my freaking camera,
Oh,
and it was low in a bush.
dang.
And the photo is perfect. I'll put it on the screen. But that and an indigo bunting. And I was shooting one the other day where I just wish I had a little bit of pre-capture because like I was still on the A7R CR
Yeah.
and it's really slow. It's like quote unquote 8 frames a second. It is way less than that. It feel maybe I'm not on compressed raw. I'm probably on uncompressed, which is way less than 8. But it's
Yeah.
annoying because I'm sitting there, I'm like trying to anticipate movement, something cool, and I go and it's always right after the action.
Yep.
And it happens often, especially with warblers.
Yep.
This whole season has been riddled with me being frustrated by it.
Yeah.
But they're fast. You get little vireos, like rare, like there was a Philadelphia vireo I was trying to
I
shoot.
got one.
Yeah, and he's super fast, and
I got good shots of
he
him.
never stays put. He's like, psh, psh,
Yeah.
psh, psh. And like if I just had like the function button on the front of the Z8 set to pre-capture or something, and you click it and then you press, you could get
Yeah.
right what you just wanted.
Yep.
And I can't do that. You can do it with the A9 III, and you can do it with the A9 or the A1 II,
A1.
but is that worth 1,500 to almost 3,000 more dollars?
$4.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. For other people who do more serious things than looking at birds in the woods, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's not worth it. They're incredible cameras. I'm photographing birds for fun.
Yeah.
My work does not require it, though I have captured bullets in midair with the A9 III for work, and it was very, very exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it. I'm excited to play with it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I need to handle the ZF a little bit more.
Oh yeah, sure.
He was playing with some of my manual lenses I brought up, and uh, there's always going to be an element of this thing feels good in my hand. It feels like something I want to play with.
Yes.
You'll hear that from every Fujifilm YouTuber. You'll hear that from everybody talking about any of the, I mean, even film photography in general. The tactile, the experience is so important to some people. And it is to me.
Yep.
But it's much less. I can throw a manual lens on even the A7 IV here, right? But
Yeah.
I got dialed in with the A7 CR. And again, I wouldn't even recommend this. This is a $3,000 body that I do not believe is $3,000. But I like the sensor. And I know I like the sensor, and
Yeah.
I had already had 61 megapixels.
Right.
It's like my walking sticks. So I hike a lot. Well, I used to hike a lot. I hike less now. I'm trying to get back into it. But I was in the desert and I never used hiking sticks. I needed them. I needed hiking poles one time because my pack was like 70 pounds and I was on day 3 and my quads were blown out. And I started using them like I could never go back. The ignorance, the blissful ignorance is so important.
Yeah.
Because I can make my best photos of all time with a 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor. I know that for a fact because
sure.
my favorite photos I've ever taken are on my GH5 from 2017. But once you get there, it's really hard to go back, which is probably why you're back here from your A7 IV.
Yes. There was a lot of nostalgia in knowing that I liked the high resolution look out of a Nikon camera. So to know that I could get that and have speed in both shooting and focusing, it has what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we talked about it a little bit, but from the D850 experience to that, is that a fair and reasonable evolution?
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
is that like the pinnacle? Because like the D850 is still relevant.
Still relevant. It's crazy how cheap you can get them. It's still relevant, yeah, and this does feel like it. And the fact that this basically is a Z9 without a built-in grip makes me pretty confident that I would love a Z9 as well.
Sure.
And yeah, it feels that way. I didn't own the D850 for that long, to be honest, but it had the biggest impact on me. It was the first time I'd ever experienced a high-resolution sensor. Well, no, D810 I did, but that was 36 megapixels. So really taking that jump up to 45 with the D850 really let me see it better.
Yeah. Especially with your landscape. He does a ton of landscape. If you're not
Landscapes.
familiar. He hasn't done it a lot since the podcast. Um, but he
Yeah.
also does a lot of coffee now, so he can't just, freeball it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
I'm doing a lot of other things. But also astrophotography. So I started with astrophotography on the A55 and the D5300 and then the D810 and the D500. A55. Yes, Sony way back in the day. A55, A65.
he's an
I still
OG.
own my A65. I just need a new battery for it. But I remember the days of the D810 having the high resolution, but not the BSI sensor to make
Yeah.
use of it at low light. And then the D850 really revolutionized things, being able to do that and pull those shadows up so cleanly.
They were the first to do it.
Right.
I don't think it was until, I don't even think the 5D Mark IV did it that well, honestly. So the D850 was the first one that was like, oh, you can pull up like a stop and a half or two stops of shadows and it'd be pretty clean.
Yes. Yes.
Nikon was the king of that.
And that's not to say like the A7 IV and whatnot can't do that.
Well, mirrorless can get pretty damn
but
close.
This implanted early on for me. I mean, what was that, like 2018?
Yeah. This is DSLR era pretty heavily still.
Right.
I don't think like
I didn't get the A7 III until like 2020 or so. So I had a couple of years to really learn like what the top end felt like.
Yeah.
And just the most memorable thing to me was the way the files looked. And out of that sensor, that was what stuck with me the most. Like I literally have an image. Does this happen for you where you had a camera that produced one image for you that you just remember? It's a green heron at the river in East Jordan, sun just coming up, and you could see the glimmer and iridescence in the sharpness at the same time.
Yeah.
I could see like every freaking color of the rainbow on this bird and how sharp it was with the 200 to 500, by the way, a zoom lens. And at that moment in editing that photo, I was absolutely blown away. And it would always mean that I would come back to Nikon if they were able to make that camera mirrorless, but fast too.
Yeah.
So I'm here now and I love it.
You are. That's awesome. Do you have that photo?
It's in the archives. I will dig it up.
Yeah, I'll have to get you to dig it out, and then we'll.
It might be my favorite photo.
We'll try to put it up because that's awesome. I think you said that. I instantly thought of. I have a photo of my father that I think I've posted on one of these. We did a photo share about portraits, and I showed you the photo.
I remember.
That was a Helios and a GH4 with a speed booster.
Wow.
One of my favorite images of all time. And then I have a GH5 with the 12 to 35. It's in Osaka, and it's a landscape. One of the best photos I think I've still ever taken in my life. It's fucking immaculate. And that was like I could just stop there and be happy. But I definitely want to see that green heron shot. They're so cool. One of my favorite birds.
Yeah.
The small herons are all cool. I still want a gold crowned, yellow crowned night heron.
Oh wow.
One of the two. I have the black crowned, but
small side note, it feels so good, especially as a photographer who is just getting into birding like I was at the time, to stalk a bird whose job it is to stalk things. Like you creeping up on something that has like the awareness of nothing better, right? That feels so good.
Yeah. Oh, well, we affectionately were calling the white-collared forest falcon the night howler when we were in Mexico. While we were trying to find the the black crown night heron, I was calling him the night stalker. And so it was really really dope to get the night stalker. I it's all good, man. Like this year for birding, for photography has been the most revitalizing. I think I guess I could attribute it to kind of more or less 6 months. But it's been good. What?
Oh, I wanted you to take a guess at how many shots I've taken on the Z8
so
far.
Oh my God. Okay. His shutter count on his Z8. Well, you've broken 30.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
50?
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
You're at like
50,000 right now. Actually, probably 55.
If that was a mechanical shutter, sell it now and buy a second one.
3 months in, dude. Isn't that crazy? I'm averaging like 7,000 shots a week.
I'm so glad I'm not doing that. And so, but there's something to that. Because you said, I can't remember if you said it while we were on the podcast or just before, that you've been at 10 frames a second.
Yeah. For the last like 3 weeks or so.
Yeah. So I had to like tell myself, when I was running the A9 III, I had to use a CF Express Type A card
Yeah.
because that thing shoots 120 frames a second raw.
Uh-huh.
That's too fast.
Yeah.
You will burn up your card so quick. You'll have to look through so many freaking images. It's cool when you set it to a hold function and you get like a burst.
Yes.
Which I'm gonna make a video this week. I have to, about my bird settings on a Sony and what I'm doing with my hold settings. The hold recall on this is so freaking epic.
Okay.
I have two hold focus settings, and then I have my main one, and it's epic. It has made my birding 10,000 times better. Elle is no longer mad at her camera. I'm no longer mad at my
dang,
camera.
all right.
We have fixed our autofocus
We're in a good
issues.
place.
Yeah, which is why I stayed with Sony and I didn't switch because I fixed my
Well,
problem.
I'm glad for you then.
But yeah, I think I think you need a lot, but you just need the amount you need.
And I
Like-
know when, like, you learn when to need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I would love to have 15 to 20.
Yeah.
But what stopped me from like just saying screw it, I'm going to get a $6,500 camera was I do not need 30 frames a second.
Yeah.
That's too many. I will shoot the hell out of my cards.
In fact, my FN3 button is a quick access to just my speed. So like
Yeah.
changing it from 10 to 20 takes me a boop, boop, and I'm in. You
Yeah.
know, that's it.
And it's crucial. I think the A9 III would have been awesome, and the A9 III is special because it can handle 120 FPS. It's a global shutter.
Yeah.
That is unlike all of the other cameras on the market right now.
Yeah.
Which means, I have to worry about my shutters on my cameras. I've had my A7 CR on the market, and the first question everybody asks is, what's the shutter count?
Right.
So like you have to worry about that. The Z8, Z9, you do not.
They're
The
shutterless.
A9, the A9 III, you do not, because they don't have a mechanical shutter.
Yep.
Kind of a special thing.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with 50,000. It feels liberating.
Yeah, I want to know one thing though. So this is a very, very fast stacked sensor. Have you had any issue with rolling shutter? Because it's not perfect.
Not a thing.
Okay.
I've never noticed anything.
And I know for a fact then, if you haven't, I will have no worries going to a stack sensor because
I complained about it, remember?
I'm picky, but this guy had some photos that I thought were pretty good, and he's like, this rolling shutter on this.
I hated every little hint of rolling shutter I could ever see in a still.
The A7 IV is brutal though.
It is bad.
The A7 IV on a 600mm lens with electronic shutters.
That's how you're going to see the worst of it.
It's unusable.
Yeah.
It's unusable, and it's unusable for wildlife. If you have a goose or a duck or anything, especially a small bird trying to move at 600 with the electronic shutter, forget about it.
Yeah. This is my first experience shooting wildlife shooting silently at all. Because the A7 IV, I was never able to shoot silently and enjoy the images. And now I'm shooting birds that cannot hear me shooting, which is helpful.
It is super helpful. Wow, there's like 3 more topics I wanted to get into right there. This is a great place to stop.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a night to shoot. We're gonna shoot in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave sometime later tomorrow.
Yep.
So we might even, I don't know if we're gonna do a part 2 or if we're just gonna have 2 different videos. But thanks for being here.
Yeah.
David and I, unfortunately, the barrier of the internet stops us from, talking too long. He has children at home. I have my fiance. Life gets, if you put us in the woods with 2 cameras, we
could do this for 5 more hours.
We're gonna need to load these batteries like 3 more times.
Yes.
So I'm gonna cut us off.
Yeah, good.
We've been on it for a minute. It's probably gonna be 1 or 2 more episodes to finish up the season for birding.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into some of the coffee stuff. We're gonna get into some of my shooting stuff. I'm doing actually a lot at work that I haven't talked about. I have some trips planned. We have some trips for early next year planned already.
Cool.
I just put the down payment on my insane Airbnb for my wedding next year, which we'll talk about because we're going to talk about some wedding photography. David has some insight on that. I have a little bit of insight on that.
And where you'll be will be cool for a lot of other photography.
Yeah, it's going to be dope. So we have so much to talk about.
Yeah.
The Discord, comment, talk to us. We actually have quite a few subscribers now. We have the Substack. I'm going to put the link to that. David's going to add to that. I actually have a couple of drafts that I've been working on. There's going to be some posts in there. I have some technical stuff I want to talk about. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
We're going to start smashing reels. We want to do a big Q&A. If you have any questions for us, I'd like to add a question and answer section to this podcast. I think that'd be really nice. If
And
you have any questions for any of our experience.
yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that just for a second.
Yeah.
I am on the I'm contributing to the Substack, but I'm gonna take a nice long time doing like a real big recap of like the year's spring migration and birding and wildlife. So if you have any bird specific questions too, throw them at us, because I want to include anything I can to do a nice long piece for that.
Yeah. There's a lot. We do this fully because it's fun and we want to have these conversations anyway. So
Until Sigma sponsors us.
Until Sigma sponsors us. Kazuda-san, if you want to send us a couple of BFs.
I'll bird with BF.
I will do any kind of photography. I'll become a boudoir photographer if that's what it takes.
I'll bird with BF.
Yeah. Dude, we're gonna go get some bilfs with the BF, baby. Let's go.
All right, the light's getting good. Let's wrap this up.
We're gonna go bird.